This is Fintan Dunne reporting. You're very welcome to the next level on breakfornews.com. I'd also like today to extend a special welcome to YouTube listeners who may be tuning in to Break for News for the first time. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you also join in on the forum, where you will get some intelligent discussion. Breakfornews.com forum is something special, and I would encourage you to join in. By way of introduction to new listeners, I'm an online journalist, or what the Mail and Guardian would call a conspiracy theorist, and indeed they did. Back in April 2002, arch conspiracy theorist Fintan Dunne was the description of the Mail and Guardian, but the Village Voice was a little kinder in 2004, saying that I was well spoken with what seemed to be an expansive and nuanced view of world politics. Nuanced meaning I don't see things in black and white, and I think that's what you'll find on Break for News. Today, our 9/11 3i investigation resumes. That's the independent international investigation of 9/11, which we started last year. But of course, regular listeners will know that yours truly has been on the job on the 9/11 issue since our first articles were published about 7 and 14 days after 9/11. You can get more on that and those articles at fintandunne.com. That's FINTANDUNNE.com. As I say, we kicked off that investigation last year, and you'll find that in the forum on breakfornews.com. A lot of good work's been done there already, and we took a break over the winter. We're now kicking off with this special episode today. It's a very serious subject, but you can't let the serious side overwhelm you. You've got to keep a balance, and you'll have trouble keeping the serious side going, because in addition to hearing yours truly today, you'll also be hearing quite a good bit from this guy.
Chanting satanic slogans, blood being used, and bathing them in it. Can you imagine what these people cuckoo, cuckoo. This is your big intellectual rebuttal to me.
Yes, none other than Alex Jones, a broadcaster out of Austin, Texas, who has become rather infamous on the 9/11 issue. And we'll be taking a close look at Alex Jones and his operation. It is a disinformation operation, a psychological warfare operation, been run by the people who were behind the 9/11 attacks. And we'll be taking a good close look at exactly the part that Mr. Fruit Loop Alex Jones plays in that operation. In his radio broadcasts and through his website Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.tv, Alex Jones has been an integral part of the cover-up of the 9/11 attacks. But besides that, the psychological warfare aspect of his operation is to focus on what he describes as a globalist plan to move us forward into a new world order, a world government where everybody gets microchipped and the concentration camps are only months away. It's a well-funded, closely scripted and slick operation which is designed to intimidate opposition to that very self-same New World Order. You know the one that was announced by George Bush Sr. And regular listeners to the show know that George Bush Sr. is the real power behind the throne of his idiot son. Now, Alex Jones, although he is regarded as a complete nutcase by many people on the left of US politics, and that of course is by design, he's attempting to put them off serious consideration that the 9/11 attacks were an inside job, but he has, along the way, managed to interview some fairly heavyweight people, including 2 ministers of government, a former cabinet member in the British Labour government, and Andreas von Bülow, for example, who held a security position in the German government. Not only that, but recently Charlie Sheen, the actor, and, for example, David Lynch have appeared on Alex Jones's show. And Sheen, von Bülow, and Michael Meacher have gone on the record on his show with their doubts about the true nature of the 9/11 attacks. But what you need to know, especially if you're one of those new listeners joining us from YouTube, is that back on the 5th of August 2004, this website named 108 websites on the internet which were either knowingly or unknowingly participating in the cover-up of the 9/11 issue, and we called them the CIA fakes, although of course the central aspects of the 9/11 attacks were extra-governmental. And CIA fakes is in any event a shorthand for the combined black operations of the G8 intelligence services running all the way from the US straight across to Russia and representing the most powerful economic forces on the planet. And what's going on here is a variation of the old expression, if you can't beat them, join them. Those who pulled off the 9/11 attacks had a brainwave. They would go one better than joining them. Rather than fight those who would doubt the official version, they determined to be those who would doubt the official version. We have since then gone on the record to say that Alex Jones is one of those who is knowingly participating in the cover-up of 9/11. You'll hear in this broadcast evidence that the CIA fakes are reacting to what breakfornews.com is doing and are attempting to cover their asses as we continue our investigations, both the work I do and the work being done by others on the forum. And we're going to keep this work up until the truth does come out, and that day may be sooner than you think. I did warn people back in 2004 that these websites and broadcasters would scale down their operations, would deliberately discredit themselves, increasingly trying to drive away their own supporters, trying to disillusion everybody, staging fake wars, fake controversies between themselves, and so demoralize those who are seeking to have the truth come out that the issue would fade from view, just like the neocons. And that is precisely what's happening. There have been many spats in the 9/11 movement, not least of which RBN, Republic Broadcasting Network, had one recently. Prior to that, it was the ST 9/11, the Scholars for 9/11 Truth operation, which had its internal wars. All of these are deliberately contrived in order to try and break apart the 9/11 Truth movement. So, here we go with Alex Jones. This guy has interviewed former cabinet-level people in the governments of both the United Kingdom and Germany. And in those interviews, Alex Jones has come across as a seemingly intelligent person and as somebody whom a former cabinet minister would have no qualms about being interviewed by. So could that really be the same person as this? You're about to hear some excerpts from a recent show on Infowars.com. And other than one little piece where we had him appear to say that he's being paid by the same globalists that he's opposing, this is untouched audio from a broadcast earlier this week on the Alex Jones Show. If you're doing something important like cutting onions or drinking coffee, I'd advise you to put it down because you might fall around the place listening to this. Here we go. The deliberately contrived degeneration of Alex Jones from serious 9/11 investigator into complete fruitcake is clearly well underway.
Can you face these issues? It's just it's incredible. So again, this is diabolical. The globalists are the same people that funded Hitler, the same people that funded me. I forgot about that. They're in control today. If you take this stuff, you're off your rocker. Go ahead, you're on the air. Here's the CDC saying it'll make your daughter bleed out her nose and die and flopping around on the ground. And that's how we fight these bastards. Sure, we'll get your info. In fact, hung up on him. Call back. Let's go ahead and talk to Mark in Austin. Go ahead.
Hi, Alex. How are you?
Good, sir. Go ahead. Do it. Todd, you're on the air. Welcome.
Hi there, Alex. Just had a quick question. Considering all the attention the Federal Reserve has gotten from American freedom and fascism, and considering a cost-benefit analysis, could we possibly see a false flag attack on the Federal Reserve?
Bastard. Emily in Ohio, you're on the air worldwide. Welcome.
I heard about the vaccines, and I totally think that's terrible.
Coward, welcome. You're on the air.
Cuckoo. Cuckoo.
So that's all you can do is say cuckoo.
Fruit Loop. Fruit Loop. Cuckoo.
Okay, what's Fruit Loop? What's cuckoo?
Cuckoo. Fruit Loop.
So that's your big argument?
Fruit Loop. Cuckoo.
Well, listen, I'm going to give you 30 more seconds. Keep saying whatever you want.
Fruit Loop. Cuckoo. Cuckoo.
This is your big intellectual rebuttal to me. He's gone. We got Joel in California and many others, but that's a fraud, too. You don't respond to any of that. And I'm always chomping at the bit. You have to take it. Major side effects, responses, seizures, deaths, because you're a coward deep down inside. You don't want to take action. You don't want to stand up against evil. And you're just sitting there, and you're upset that somebody's pointing out bad things. I have a daughter The government's pushing to try to make it the law. You have to take these. They haven't yet. So they try to convince the sheeple that it is the law, where they're going to take all our liberties and freedoms and tax the daylights out of us. I'm upset about that. You've got me completely and totally wrong. You don't know who I am. But can you get your head screwed on straight? Let me ask you this question. Does it make you mad? That's a fraud. It's a hoax.
Well, I don't know. It makes me upset.
Appreciate your call. Glad you're on board, and everybody is welcome to this show. These liberal conservatives mean nothing. Nothing. It's all part of keeping us in a box and playing us off against each other, divide and conquer. Chanting satanic slogans, blood being used, and bathing them in it. Can you imagine what these people,
Cuckoo, Fruit Loop.
So that's your big argument?
Yeah. Okay. We accentuated some of the verbal anachronisms which Alex Jones comes out with there, but as I say, that is Alex Jones' segments of a broadcast in the last few days on Infowars.com. We warned you that this guy was going to drag himself down market. That's exactly what he's doing. And what you've got to bear in mind about this is you're not listening to something spontaneous there. You're listening to scripted psychological warfare. And Alex Jones is now in the business of self-discreditation. And that's how bad it's gotten. At this stage, Alex Jones is making Howard Stern look like an intellectual. You getting it? This is not spontaneous. This is scripted, especially the calls. What they're trying to do is to drive away anybody with any intelligence until they're left with the lowest of the trailer trash. This is, as it has been named on the forum on breakfornews.com, the controlled demolition of the 9/11 movement, and this is the controlled implosion of Alex Jones. If you've ever listened to Alex Jones in the past, you know that if you screw up on a call-in to the Alex Jones show, your history, your toast, in seconds. The disconnect button is pushed on you so fast that your feet don't even hit the ground. That's the way it's done on radio. So have a listen to one piece of that segment, again the Fruit Loop bit, and just watch how Alex Jones gives this guy all the time he needs to make the right impression on the listeners, the intelligent ones, that is.
Welcome, you're on the air.
Cuckoo, cuckoo.
So that's all you can do is say cuckoo.
Fruit Loop, Fruit Loop, cuckoo.
Okay, what's Fruit Loop, what's cuckoo?
Cuckoo, Fruit Loop.
So that's your big argument?
Fruit Loop, cuckoo.
Well, listen, I'm going to give you 30 more seconds. Keep saying whatever you want.
Fruit Loop, cuckoo, cuckoo.
This is your big intellectual rebuttal to me. He's gone.
Yeah, he's gone all right. And we edited that down because that guy got certainly more than his 30 seconds worth. Just to make sure everybody gets the message that Alex Jones is cuckoo and Fruit Loop. Because that's how the game's been played now as they try and drive away the good listeners. Well, you can always come here, can't you? Because we're not dumb. We are, as I said, the tail wagging the dog of the 9/11 cover-up, and we saw evidence of that last week in relation to the 7/7 bombings in London. Because we just blew them out of the water on another psychological operation. I'll have details of that after a break, after I give this important message for Alex Jones and others who were fronted for the cover-up of 9/11. You know, you guys have been out front on this. When the 9/11 cover-up comes apart, and believe me, it's coming apart, you guys are the ones who are going to be in the front line. There's going to have to be an awful lot of investigation done in order to come up with those behind the scenes who have directed the operation. But we're not going to have to go very far to find those who have fronted for the cover-up of 9/11. So what are you going to do when you come undone? That's a great intro for this from Duran Duran. This is Come Undone. You're on the next level on breakfornews.com, and we'll be right back. And you're very welcome back. You're on the next level on breakfornews.com, where we are just waiting for the cover-up of 9/11 to come undone. Now, before the break, you were hearing from Fruit Loop Alex Jones just days ago on his show, but it was back to sane Alex Jones as soon as he touched upon the issue of the 7/7 bombings in London. When he's dealing with the issue like 9/11 and 7/7, and there is a requirement to come across as reasonably competent and sane. He does so, but then in between that, it's Fruit Loop territory. So why was he dealing with the issue of 7/7? Well, let me give you some background. Around about November of last year, a site appeared on the internet, thefourthbomb.com. That's the numeral 4TH. And on that website, a guy allegedly by the name of Daniel Obachika was claiming to have been a survivor of the bus bomb which went off on that day. You recall there were 3 bombs which went off in the London Underground and one which went off above ground in a London bus. And Daniel claims to have been on that bus, and he claims to be a citizen reporter telling the story. He also claims to have been harassed by the security services in an attempt to prevent him from coming forward with his story. Supposedly, there's a book in the offing. It was on Wednesday the 30th of January, over a week ago, that I published an article on the internet about that website. On the 30th of January, I posted that both on breakfornews.com and on a website in the United Kingdom which is investigating the bombing. And you can get links to the article, links to all of the information in relation to this by going to breakfornews.com. Go to the homepage if it's within a few days of the 9th of February. Otherwise, you'll find it in the archive section of breakfornews.com and just click on the photo that goes with the audio for the 9th of February 2007 and you'll get all the links to this. That's breakfornews.com, audio archive. Click on the photo that goes with the audio. And I entitled that article 7/7 Survivor's Tale is a Bomb. I found it incredible. I found it in fact to be typical of the kind of lurid diversionary material which is designed to discredit legitimate investigators of these issues. I found it to be classic junk, the kind of junk put out by what I call the CIA fakes. And if you want more on that, just Google CIA fakes and you'll get the first link there. Just click on that. That takes you to the article on CIA fakes. So I found this to be fake material. But let's get into the substance of it. The first thing that attracted my suspicions was the way that this thing is being described. Now, the bombings were on the 7th of July, which is 7/7. It's known as the 7/7 attacks, 7/7. And the guy who is putting the story out, his first name is Daniel. But if you put Daniel and 7/7 together, you get something very interesting, particularly if you write it the way he writes it on that website, which is not 7/7, it's 7:7. So that gives you Daniel 7:7. Sound like a biblical reference to you? It did to me, and I looked it up straight away and I found that Daniel 7:7 is a passage from the book of Revelations, and I'll read it to you. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly, and it had great ardent teeth, and it devoured and brake in pieces, and stampeded the residue with the feet of it, and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. That's from Daniel 7:7. The fourth beast, eh? And this is a website about the fourth bomb on 7/7, and the guy's name is Daniel, and to me, I'm afraid, that all sounds a bit too coincidental. It sounds like Daniel 7/7, this stuff that's on that website, is deliberately taking us into the area of the book of Revelations, because it's trying to drag us into the whole Looney Tune fruitcake territory of the kind of lunatics who jabber on about the apocalypse. Why would the guy write the thing as 7:7 unless he's deliberately dragging us in to these apocalyptic biblical revelations as part of his website, supposedly detailing a true account of a survivor of the London bombings? No, it smacks more of discreditation to try and paint those who are so-called conspiracy theorists as nutcases. And so I was very suspicious, and I looked into his story. And the more I looked into the story, the more it confirmed my initial suspicions, and I eventually, on the Wednesday the 30th of January, I published that article, extremely sceptical of his story, and you'll never guess what happened. The story had been out there now since last November. Amazingly, within 2 days of me publishing that skeptical article about the contents of the website, the guy shows up on Alex Jones, being interviewed on Alex Jones's show. And I believe the reason that happened was because they immediately reacted to the article I published and decided we better get this guy out on air before word spreads that Fintan Dunne Break for News has published a skeptical article about the guy and his credibility starts to go down. We might as well run with the guy now rather than wait around. And you'll hear evidence that that was exactly what happened as we look into it. So you see, the CIA fake operation is well aware of breakfornews.com, and breakfornews.com is now driving their response. So there you have it. We publish on the night of Tuesday, Wednesday morning, the end of January, and on the Thursday morning, Daniel is on Alex Jones's show. Here he is now introducing Daniel, who claims to be a survivor of the 7/7 bus bombing.
Thank you for your courage, sir. Tell us first about yourself and how you got the courage to go public.
Okay, I'm just a regular guy. I've born, bred, work in London, and that day I was on my way to work in Old Street, and there was some kind of disruption going on. We were told it was a power surge, and we were evacuated, and that's how I became to be on the bus. Because I was standing on the lower deck, because I wasn't sure whether I was on the correct bus. And then I peered ahead, and I saw these two cars, which were a Mercedes and a BMW, blue and black, which seemed to be in front of the bus, holding it up. And it was diverted about 4 or 5 minutes later down towards Tavistock Square.
So there's Daniel's first claim that the bus was being blocked by a BMW and a Mercedes and ended up being diverted to Tavistock Square. Of course, traffic was at a standstill all over London right then, so it's a rather inflated claim to say that two cars that were in front of the bus were blocking it, causing its diversion. But there you go. Let's press on with Daniel's claimed survivor's account of the bus bombing itself.
After the explosion, you can understand, I was on the floor, so it took about 5 seconds till the noise had actually quietened down, and then I just got up and then I ran and escaped and ran straight down the street. After a few paces down the street, I saw a man holding a camera. It looks like a camcorder, who was walking towards me, filming the bus itself. I was confused by this, and I stopped and skidded to a halt and looked left, right, and what was going on. Then I looked behind me and I saw the bus, the upper deck of which had been completely destroyed by the bomb explosion. And then I think at that point, my mind must have just changed into some kind of, I was really not frightened, but I was aware that something amiss was going on, and I was just looking at the people moving into the actual space on the square. There were guys who were hanging around. There was a row of policemen who were just standing there in yellow fluorescent suits, jackets. They weren't doing anything. They were just watching. There was this guy filming, and I'm saying, what is going on here? It was just not, it didn't feel right.
So there you have it. That's his account of the key moments of the bus bombing. He was off that bus straight away. Moving down the street, he sees a guy with a camcorder filming, and he gets suspicious then. He sees people standing around, and he becomes suspicious. Great presence of mind, this guy. Now, he's just been on a bus that has been bombed, and he has the presence of mind to get deeply suspicious. And he's just a regular guy. He's not a, quote, conspiracy theorist, just a regular guy. He's on a bus that gets bombed, and he's immediately acting like some kind of private investigator. Does that hang together for you? It doesn't hang together for me. Let's hear some more.
So I actually went and helped some woman who had been walking beside the bus. She was covered in blood, and then I helped her to get some kind of help at a hotel which was further down the square. And I passed this gentleman who seemed to have acquired some kind of injuries, but I couldn't understand for the life of me how this was possible, because he was 40, 50 meters away from the bus itself. So he was making a lot of noise and trying to get people's attention, but I just saw his actual injuries as fake.
Okay. Well, the first thing about that is that having departed the bus, which rather explains the fact that we don't have photographs of him around the time of the explosion, he then goes to help some lady and helps her to get treatment somewhere else. And that explains his absence from the scene in photographs which were taken at the time in the minutes after the explosion. So that's a very, very convenient departure from the scene, as is his claim that he then returns to the scene because he gets suspicious. Let's hear some more of his account.
How many operative types or police did you see when you got off the bus around you already staring at it?
Okay, there were about 4 guys in blue bottoms and who had rucksacks. They were kind of foot soldier types. There were about 2 or 3 people who were just standing in the doorways, just watching everything. And there was another guy who was coordinating everything, he was in plain clothes and coordinating police when they finally came forward to actually do something.
Well, that's very interesting. Seemingly plainclothes police people directing things. A bomb had just gone off. And to try and recast the actions of those at the scene in this conspiratorial light, to me, paints Daniel as some kind of a conspiracy nut, and that is exactly the impression you're supposed to get. This is discreditation material that Daniel's putting out with Alex Jones, and I'm not buying any of it. Also, none of it is substantive. He's talking about some guy who was injured and he thinks the injuries were fake. He talks about a guy with a camcorder. This is London, one of the most popular tourist destinations in the world, and a bomb has just gone off on a bus and some guy with a camcorder is filming that, and instead of that being some tourist picking up footage which he will dine out on for the next year, it becomes a secret agent filming the event. I mean, this is rubbish. This is bullshit. But as you heard, Alex Jones playing right into it as the portentous music starts up as we go into a break. And when they come back after the break, Alex Jones picks up the issue of this guy who allegedly had a fake injury and runs with it big.
No blood except on his chest, and it looked like it was put on out of a ketchup dispenser, little squirters that you use, just kind of dribbled down the front. And so many times my instincts are right. Well, it turns out that's the individual that within 60 seconds was flopping around and prancing around in front of cameras and all the waiting police. And notice, though, they didn't, all over every major newspaper in the world, all over every major television network in the world, every news program in the world, no one interviewed him, no one said, where is he now? No one said his name. Everybody else they'd show bloody or bleeding. A day later, they'd say, here's their name. Not him, and now the photos being jerked everywhere.
As you heard there, he said, yeah, his instincts were right. Turns out, Alex Jones has been suspicious of this guy from the beginning, and now conveniently along comes Daniel to confirm those suspicions, saying, yeah, I was an eyewitness there at the scene and that guy was nowhere near the bus. Is that too convenient for you? Too convenient for me. And that really is about it. That's about all that Daniel has to say. Now the website is full. It has a recording of an alleged phone call from the police, part of the harassment campaign, and there is video footage of the concierge of his apartment building, whom he says was a police informant. And those are all nothing to do with the 7/7 bombings on the day itself. That, what you just heard, is the substantive aspect of Daniel's story, and there's nothing in there. But as the interview continues on the Alex Jones Show, lacking any further substantive detail, we're back to the issue of the Mercedes and the BMW, and then cue the portentous music and the hyper-inflated claims about what's going on here and about Daniel being in danger. Here we go.
And what color? The BMW was blue, correct?
Blue, yes. The driver of the BMW waved the motorcyclist away with some form of identification. I only assumed he had some form of identification.
You saw him, something in the hand, waved it.
Yeah, that was it.
Absolutely key. Stay there. Your debriefing will continue on the other side. Steve Watson will join in. This is absolutely vital, and we're trying to keep this man safe right now by him getting his entire story out in more detail. I'm Alex Jones, battling the New World Order at point-blank range.
Right. Your debriefing will continue on the other side of the break. Note that Daniel says also there that he assumes the guy had some identification. This is the guys in the BMW and the Mercedes. Had some identification to wave away a police motorcyclist who was attempting to move them on. But he didn't see any ID, he just assumes. So they're very careful in this constructed story to make it sound sort of conspiracy theory plausible if you're dumb enough to buy this kind of hyped rubbish, but at the same time to have actual elements in there that discredit it. There's absolutely nothing in there to show that the drivers of these two alleged cars had anything to do with the bus, had anything to do with anything. So, where did they dream this up? The people who put together this rubbish tale, which Daniel is peddling. Where did they come up with it? How did they get this idea? Well, they really must think we're dumb, because Alex Jones himself gives us a clear indication of where they dreamed up this scenario in the planning department of Disinformation Central, which runs the Alex Jones show. Here he is now explaining virtually, if you read between the lines, where they came up with this cock and bull story.
And you take movies like The Quiet American by Graham Greene, which is based on real events, they just changed the names. That's when the Times of London reporter, who's based there in southern Vietnam, he's been recruited by the CIA guy. He doesn't know he's CIA. And the CIA guy is actually running terror attacks to blame it on the North to escalate the war. This is before the war really kicks off in the late 1950s, and it's based on true stories. That really happened. And then all of a sudden, he doesn't know the guy's CIA, and suddenly these bombings blow up in the square and kill all these women and children. And then he's running around, the CIA guy, giving orders in Vietnamese. And the Times of London writer just goes and just leans back and realizes, well, literally, the man you're listening to right now saw something just like you see in that movie. Just like what you see in that fictionalized account of real events in Vietnam. Okay? That's why this is so important.
See, so that's supposed to convince you that what Daniel saw is just like it was in that movie, in the fake bombing in South Vietnam in that movie. Daniel saw much the same thing, so yeah, that just shows you that what Daniel's talking about is the kind of stuff that really does go on. Well, I beg to differ. I'll take the completely opposite interpretation out of that. People in intelligence study movie scripts to try and come up with ideas for these cock and bull scenarios that they put out. I think that they got the inspiration from the movie and said, right, why don't we have this Daniel guy come on, he's talking about operatives on the scene directing events just like in that movie. Reverse the logic, folks. That's how they came up with this bullshit. Okay, and if you think that account of half-baked suspicions about the people at the scene of the bus bombing was bad, wait till you hear the half-baked suspicions about the so-called harassment which Daniel was undergoing. Here we go again.
This started by following me when I came out of my office on lunch breaks. They were waiting on the corner. There's a place called the Honourable Artillery Barracks, and that's 10 minutes from where I worked, and that is where they kept all the dead bodies from the 7/7 attacks. So the police outside there, every time I used to walk past, they used to have something to say, call my name or something like that. And I think it was just a campaign trying to put psychological stress and pressure upon me, because obviously if it came down to me testifying, they want me to be deemed unfit to testify or something like that. I was chased once in Aldgate. A guy just came after me. I had arranged to meet someone from the office, and then I got there, this guy came after me, so I actually ran into this building, and then he ran in there and followed me, and I actually hid in some offices.
Can you believe this? No, you can't. I can't either. Some guy chased him. But the most incredible part is that the police on duty, the ordinary cops, were calling out his name. Hey, the ordinary cops in the street are in on this. That's how deep this conspiracy goes. Oh, yeah. There you go. That is total rubbish. There is nothing of substance in there. And even by their standards, this is poor. I think you'll have to agree. Even by their standards, this is scraping the bottom of the barrel, and that is not an accident. This is part of the deliberate dumbing down of the 9/11 conspiracies which have been put out by the CIA fakes. They are turning it into soap opera at this stage. And Daniel's story, to say it is not credible, doesn't even come close. It's trash is the only word. It's total trash. And of course, that's why they had to run with it. Immediately I wrote that article criticizing this story. They had to run with it straight away because it's so trashy that any delay would have been terminal. And so they had to get it out straight away. There is proof that that's exactly what they did. And the proof comes from Alex Jones's mouth. Listen to what he says about when he went to Daniel's website to listen to one of the audios that's there. This is Alex Jones now, giving the game away.
And again, Daniel, give my producer at the network your website again. We've got a link to it on InfoWars.
World Wide Web, the fourth bomb is the 4 bomb.com.
Yeah, go to the fourthbomb.com, and I know I've listened to that a few days ago. Where specifically is that clip so we can grab that right now and play it?
I know, I listened to that a few days ago. Thursday you broadcast, Wednesday you were on the site. As soon as I published that article, they went go to get this guy on air quick, and so Alex Jones was onto the site in order to get a quick review and briefing of what was on that website. So they were onto that site within hours to get their act together and to get this guy on air quick. And by the way, the broadcast interview there, if you listen to some of the phrasing, etc., it was Daniel was reading off a script, and also that was not live. They pre-recorded that and then merged it in to the rest of the show. They pre-recorded it because they didn't want to put this guy live on air because he's not that good, and so you're best to pre-record that kind of stuff so that you can get it right. Just after Alex says that's key, listen for the gap, and then he picks it up as if it was live with a comment about your debriefing will continue. There you go. That's key, and then the gap. Here we go.
The motorcyclist away with some form of identification. I only assumed he had some form of identification.
You saw him, something in the hand, waved it.
Yeah, that was it.
Absolutely key. Stay there. Your debriefing will continue on the other side. Steve Watson will join in. This is absolutely vital, and we're trying to keep this man safe right now by him getting his entire story out in more detail.
There you go. And you can get the whole interview online at breakfornews.com. As I say, just go to either the homepage or the audio archive, click on the photo that goes with the broadcast for the 9th of February 2007, and that'll take you to a forum page where you can get a link to the full recording of that interview on InfoWars. And you know, everything to do with Alex Jones's coverage of the 7/7 issue in particular has gone to show that he is working hand in glove with those who are behind the attacks, and no more so than in this cock and bull story which they immediately rushed on to air as soon as we had outed it. How do they think they're going to get away with this? I think they're running on autopilot here. They have to run with something. They have to come up with something, and that's one of the dangers in an intelligence operation, is overcooking it, folks. You've overcooked it. Just because you've got people on staff doesn't mean that you should let them out there and start doing stuff that is as pathetically poor as this. You're better actually shutting up. You're giving the game away. You have given the game away. This is very sloppy work, folks. You're going to get caught. You're going to get caught. This is you getting caught. And the cover-up on 9/11 is breaking down, folks. That's what's happening. And I'll be back with some more on that, and on how these guys, they don't understand the bigger picture of the social change that's going on, of the internet phenomenon and what it means. and they're out of their depth. I'll be back with more on that. This is Moby and Porcelain. You're on the next level on breakfornews.com, and we'll be right back. And you're very welcome back. You're on the next level on breakfornews.com. And whatever possessed you to pull 9/11 off? And I'm talking now to the people behind the scenes, those who planned it, those who front for it, politicians, those in the media, disinformation agents, and the rest of you. Whatever made you think you could get away with this? You're using old rules, you do not understand the social revolution that's going on, and you're going down. Plain and simple. It's going to happen. Believe me. Let me explain. General Pinochet was put on trial recently in his dying years. I mean, that isn't even going to be your fate, because the pace of change is way faster. You're not going to get even near old age before you're facing the consequences of your actions on 9/11. And the truth is the reverse of Alex Jones and the Temple of Doom, all about the New World Order taking over and imposing a global dictatorship. The truth is, the New World Order is going down, and this is their swan song. The existing structure is collapsing, and 9/11 was its swan song. A self-inflicted, final, terminal wound. And you don't even realize that, do you guys and girls? Let me explain some of it. Everything in the universe moves from monism to dualism to pluralism. And you can see that in the infant. The infant starts off as a monist, i.e. God. The infant is indistinguishable from its environment. The baby is just the void that wants to be filled, and as long as it gets a breast to suckle upon, then it's happy. But it is incapable of realizing that it is separate from that upon which it suckles. Did you know that? Go talk to your psychological experts and they'll tell you that I'm right. The baby doesn't realize that it's separate from mother, for example. It thinks it's all one. The baby has a universal monism and does not see the boundaries between itself and others. And as the baby grows up, it moves from monism to dualism, and now it's playing games with mommy. Now it's making eye contact with mommy, and after a while it begins to realize that you have to cry to get shit around here because it's very frustrating. You want stuff and it doesn't happen. Hey, this is terrible. So you start crying in order to get what it is that you want, and slowly the awareness begins to dawn on you that in fact that is a separate being. And that's the dualistic phase of the infant. And then as the infant manages to get up and walk around, it finally reaches the pluralist stage when it encounters others in the school, kindergarten, playground or wherever, and it realizes that its needs and wants and desires have to be subsumed and have to negotiate with the needs, wants and desires of others, and that it's just one among many. We see a similar dynamic playing out in human society. For example, in the European society which spawned the United States, most people couldn't read or write. Only the elite could read and write. Only the religious elite could read and write. And the majority of the population were in the role of infant or child relating to parent. They were in that dualistic phase. But that's changing, and it moves from duality to plurality, which is the internet era, is this global awareness. So to think that you could move into a period of global awareness and maintain duality is just bucking the trend beyond belief. You cannot move into a pluralistic, flat, networked environment and retain a hierarchical structure. You just can't do it. It never will be done. And that's always the way it was going to go, was going to move to plurality, pluralism. That's the era we're headed into. And if you take a close look at what it was that you did on 9/11, was you demolished the twin pillars, the twin towers of duality. You demolished them yourselves, for crying out loud, you dummies. 2 towers, the twin towers which fell, were the twin towers of duality. You signalled the end of your own era by bringing them down. and you brought yourselves down in the process. That's what's happening. And your fate is inescapable. And in order to try and get away with it, you have to be very good. And if you were very good, well then the likes of me wouldn't be out here, would I? If you were going to get away with it, then you wouldn't have been outed, and your disinformation campaign wouldn't have been outed on the internet on the 5th of August 2004 by Break for News. If you were going to get away with it, that wouldn't have happened. But it did, and so you're not going to get away with it. And what you thought was your advantage, the information dominance which you achieve through the use of the television medium in order to persuade people as to what reality is no use to you in the internet era, because millions upon millions of us, we're not watching TV anymore, folks. We're on the internet, and we are internetworking with each other and sharing information, and we share it at a speed which outpaces your hierarchical structure. That's just the way it works. And you've got to be lucky running this kind of an operation like 9/11. You've got to be lucky all the time. We, the people, have only got to be lucky once. And I'm telling you here now, on the 9th of February 2007, I'm telling you now that we are about to get very, very, very lucky, with a lot of zeros after it. And you're totally out of the game, folks. And the one advantage I have from your point of view is I'm not in the retribution business for what you did. I'm not into death penalties and all that stuff. I'm not into more death. There's been enough death inflicted. I'm into all of us moving on, moving forward. And so you need people like me who are reasonable to protect you, because there are people who are going to want to tear you apart limb from limb. I can understand the reason why they would, but that kind of attitude is not appropriate for the era we're moving into. So there you go. You're going down, guys. It's inevitable. And we'll be here to chart your downfall. And to hasten that day forward, our 9/11 independent international investigation, the 3i investigation, resumes on breakfornews.com. I hope you will contribute. Go to Break for News, join in the forum there, and make your contribution. Because the sooner we bring an end to this, then the sooner the deaths stop. And we've had just about enough of death resulting from 9/11, both on the day and subsequently. Okay, that's it for this edition of The Next Level, and I will be back very shortly with more. I do hope you can join me for that. But in the meantime, for breakfornews.com, this has been Fintan Dunne reporting. Thanks for tuning in.